Hey, hi. Welcome to Someone Else's Movie, the original podcast where an actor, writer, director, or nebulous industry figure gives a little love to a movie they didn't make. I'm Norm Wilner, senior film writer for Now Magazine, and this is the other thing I do. My guest this week is Mary Holland, an actor and screenwriter you may have seen on Veep, Blunt Talk, and Homecoming, among other things, or heard in animated programs like Animals, Hoops, Harley Quinn, and a dozen more. Last Christmas, she popped as Mackenzie Davis's gleefully weird sister in Happiest season, which Mary co-wrote with director Clea Duvall, and in the new comedy Golden Arm, which just arrived on VOD platforms across America, she plays a baker recruited into the high-stakes world of professional arm wrestling by her trucker pal Betsy Sidaro. It's also gleefully weird. You should check it out. Mary picked Drop Dead Gorgeous, Michael Patrick Jann's 1999 mockumentary about a beauty pageant in a small Minnesota town where the teenage candidates for the Sarah Rose Cosmetics Mount Rose American Teen Princess pageant are bright, beaming, and being picked off one at a time. Kirsten Dunst, Denise Richards, Brittany Murphy, Amy Adams, and Sarah Stewart are among the contestants doing their best to keep smiling as the body count ticks upward. Allison Janney, Ellen Barkin, Kirstie Alley, Sam McMurray, and Mindy Sterling are some of their parents and mentor figures. Will Sasso's in there too, and, well, that's a bit of a problem. We'll deal with it. This is Someone Else's Movie.
I think that was one of the first mockumentary-style comedies I ever saw. It was like no other movie I had ever seen. I feel like I watched it when I want to say, like, when did it come out? Tell me when it came out.
99.
99. Okay. Yes. So I saw it when I was 14, and I had just never seen a comedy like that. It really struck me. It's incredibly funny, and it really is very satirical. Very the characters are amazing, and the thing I think that because I had never seen Waiting for Guffman. I had never seen any of the Christopher Guest mockumentaries. And
Right.
So the thing that struck me so much about Drop Dead Gorgeous that I was like, this is genius, is all the characters, the specificity of all the characters, and then their relationship to the camera crew. I thought it just added a whole nother layer to the comedy that blew my mind.
Yeah, I could absolutely see people who are figuring themselves out as performers and people with a comic perspective just jumping on something like this.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't particularly original for the moment. There had been other projects like it, but there is something so specific about the character work and so, like, I had not revisited it since 1999. This was the first time I've encountered it in 22 years, or re-encountered it. And I didn't much care for it at the time. I dug up my old review and it's like, oh, I think my biggest problem was that it was kind of mean-spirited, which
right.
It is.
It is. And there are definitely some parts of it that are incredibly problematic.
Yeah. That
yes.
stuff has not dated well.
No, it has not.
Yeah. But what's amazing is just the sheer, like, it's crammed with talent, and
yeah.
You look at certain pieces of it and you can see not just other filmmakers, but the actors themselves going on to use those pieces somewhere else. Like Allison Janney won an Oscar for the same role that she plays here. It's just put in a different context in the other film.
The cast is incredible. I mean, that started my lifelong love for Amy Adams. I think she is so brilliant in this. Allison Janney, Kirstie Alley does some great work. They're very specific characters, and it takes place in such a specific community. I loved also, like, the supporting characters that would come in, like the librarian who would sort of give a history about Mount Rose and the things that, the traditions there, and would give definitions whenever we needed them in the movie. And just the whole idea of the beauty pageant, the world of beauty pageants in small town America is just very, very fascinating. And I do feel like there's a lot of elements to it that were super satirical and like, a commentary on this, this institution. But yeah, I saw it. I had just never seen anything like it. And so I rewatched it recently, and I agree with you that there's a lot of, and that's true of a lot of comedies in the 90s that did not age well. But even the first few moments of like getting into the movie, I think is so fun with the informational video that plays where the host, and he is so funny, and that just pulls you in immediately, like his sort of grinning smarminess, and you just know right away the world you're stepping into is so clear. I loved it.
Yeah. And then it comes back later on with the revelation that someone's roommate did Adam West, quote, did Adam West, unquote.
Did Adam West.
But the contrast of the enthusiasm, the innocence of the pageanteers, of the contestants, and the exploitation that's going on all around them.
Yes.
That really stood out to me this time. Like, it's much savvier about that than I gave it credit for the first time.
I agree. And the contestants too, as you said, their enthusiasm and how different their ways into the pageant are. Yeah. And their different reasons for doing it. It's just, every character is so clear.
Yeah. And the casting is, I'd forgotten Amy Adams was in it. I mean, just like, oh my God, that's her. And she doesn't even look like Amy Adams as we have come to know her, right? I'm assuming she starved herself for the part or something, because she just looks so gaunt. And
I know, she doesn't skinny.
She's not unfit, unhealthy, but it's just such a different look from what her body naturally will do.
Right. I loved so much this character that she played, who just was, I mean, you think of Amy Adams and you think of her in Enchanted, or, doing her character work where she plays more buoyant characters and more sort of peppy, bouncy characters. This is the peppiest and the bounciest of them all. And the image that keeps playing in my mind is her when the documentary crew is backstage at the pageant, and she like struts by in her underwear and like waves so excitedly at the cameras, but she's like almost totally nude. Her joy is just so infectious. It just like comes through the screen and grabs you as a viewer. It's so funny. Yeah,
the same thing happens in Junebug, right? Like they found that quality of her and just ran with it. I love
Junebug.
And I remember at the time people were saying, who is this incredible discovery? And it's just like, well, she's been around forever. She was on The Office. And then it turns out, oh no, she was there too. She was in this as well. And somehow, like, I don't know if it's her instinct as an actor, but she's gracious and she never pulls focus from the main story. Like, she just knows she's there to pop in every moment, but never dominate. It's really interesting performance for a film this loose and unstructured.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a great point. She's such a brilliant actor and so deft at navigating that, understanding her role in the story. And it's so good. I'm just marveling about Amy Adams. I love Amy Adams.
We can do that. We can turn this into an Amy Adams podcast.
That would be great.
I do not mind. Just one of those fascinating actors who is constantly doing, like, she's almost always better than the thing she's in, even when she's in great things.
Yeah.
And that was like, again, she's been doing it for 22 years. It's always been there, which is such a strange quality to notice in someone who keeps getting packaged as a leading actor, as a movie star, but she's a remarkable ensemble player. She's a trooper.
Another movie I saw her in, because after I saw Drop Dead Gorgeous, I was like, I gotta see every other movie she did. Cruel Intentions 2. I don't know if you knew this.
I mean, I don't know that I knew that she was in it. I definitely haven't seen it. Was that the one that was produced for like a TV pilot that never happened?
I don't know.
Because there was a bunch of that in 2000-ish. They were repackaging a lot of stuff that they tried to make cable shows out of.
Right. That might be what happened.
Manchester Prep?
She plays she plays like I don't even remember any part of the plot beyond like she's a real bad girl. She's like Sarah Michelle Gellar's character.
Okay.
Times 10,000, and it is a very surprising turn. But she's still amazing in it. It's like not a great movie, but she's fantastic in it.
Oh, wow. I would have picked her. I would have pegged her for the Selma Blair role, like the innocent who gets corrupted.
She plays that's just how brilliant she is. She plays the evil manipulator. She's so good in it. But it is a wild movie. If you ever like, I want to see what that's all about, I recommend taking a peek.
Well, for the purposes of Amy Adams' completism, I think I have to. And then we can also pivot. Speaking of manipulators, there's the thing that Denise Richards is doing, which is not exactly evil, but so banal and blank. Like that's, again, like Starship Troopers, it's evidence that she could be great if they find a context, if the filmmaker finds a context for her and uses certain qualities and limitations. That's a good performance from Denise Richards, who was getting a lot of flack at that time for the Bond movie she'd just made.
Right. I think she's awesome in this, and I agree with you that she's framed in such a way and is like supported in the context and in the characters that surround her, where she really her role as like the antagonist or the evil one in the story, her and her mother. Yeah. It really stands out also in stark contrast to how nice everyone is around them. Like they could almost just be mildly biting and still come off as like evil. You know what I mean? In this community, because everybody is so Midwestern and nice and, polite. And Denise Richards like has none of that about her. She's so cold and ambitious. Very funny.
There's that great moment of commentary within the film where, and of course it's Thomas Lennon's voice, which is even better. Just this great dry voice of the documentarian at one point saying, well, Brett's dead. He was shot in the head. And she's just polishing this gun and going, oh yeah. And just absolutely.
Well, hunting season.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's really, you got to be careful out there. And then she smiles.
Dead-eyed smile. Yeah. It's great.
I know. She plays a great sociopath.
She does. And
you got to give her credit.
It's one of those things that I think I blew past the first time just because it seemed like a really obvious joke. But of course, it seems that way because the film is structured it that way and that we're supposed to know. It's like it's on the nose for a reason. And then there's all the other subtle stuff going on with Amber's sweetness and that. I think it's the scene just before it where she has that great line about how you're not supposed to sneak up on the living at a funeral home. Like just the phrasing of that is so clever.
Yes. I looked up the writer of this screenplay because I was like, there's so many clever, great jokes in this movie. And I was sad to see that there hasn't been, or at least not that I could find more that she's done. Because I really think that this was such an amazing comedic, intro into the movie world. And then I feel like I never saw anything else that she did. But yeah, Kirsten Dunst's character is so phenomenal. Her working in the morgue, or not in the morgue, but the funeral home,
funeral parlor,
is like such a great way to have her be personally. To watch her like intimate personal reaction to her friends as they get murdered.
Yeah. It's a great running gag, isn't it?
Yeah.
And her ability to be chipper and unflappable and just genuinely warm-hearted, I guess.
Yeah.
Kind-hearted, to the point where, again, one of the last things in the film is that she just happens to be somewhere where a reporter gets shot during a siege and she picks up the mic and that's her career now. And I don't know that the film is opposed to that. I'm still trying to read this. Like, it is a weird final cruelty that the reporter who gets shot is never clearly just killed for the convenience of the story. But but Amber, again, like she just rolls into things. And I was trying to figure out if it's some kind of weird commentary on privilege because she's an attractive blonde white girl
woman
in 1999 in Minnesota.
In Minnesota,
But also, she's not deserving of everything that happens because of her attitude and because of her, like, she genuinely seems to be a nice person. who is also good at things. Like she's talented enough that she can do the stuff that she falls into. And
wants to be like Diane Sawyers is her hero, like wants to be a reporter, and so seizes that opportunity. But I think it's very true that I mean, this story is incredibly, all about white privilege. I feel like.
I just don't know that the movie knows it, which is so fascinating, because it's the period of the time where you could just say, well, the reason we don't have people of color in this movie is because it's set in Minnesota, which is a good defense for 1999. Right. And its ire is really more aimed at the mentally challenged, which again, Will Sasso goes for it, and he's doing what they asked him to do. And it's one of those things where every now and then you just run into this wall of, oh yeah, no, movies used to be so much worse.
Absolutely. And have no awareness and no, like, making jokes at the expense of people and experiences that are just so not thought through at all, or considered, or at like in any way. Like, there are so many parts of this movie that I feel like the comedy is really smart and really nuanced and surprising and interesting. And like, I see the social commentary of it. And then there are other elements of it that are like, oh my gosh, you just completely dropped the ball on bringing that same level of like intelligence and awareness that you brought to the other parts of the script. Like, that it just totally was like, well, that happened.
Yeah. The one downside to this podcast is that every now and then someone picks a movie they love while also knowing that it's problematic. And you just have to, you have to push through it, which is fine. Because I think in some cases it's worth it. And in others, the conversation, the engagement is the interesting part, to find out why people love what they love because of when they saw it, and because the impulse is there to defend certain things that have changed, have acquired a new context or revealed their original context. I'm also thinking about the way the movie handles deafness, which is simultaneously compassionate and weirdly not, right? Like Brittany Murphy is signing and doing things. And then there's another joke about a different character who gets hit on the head and loses her hearing, and she's happy because she already knows how to sign. And it's just this weird collision of good intentions and a quick joke, right?
Yeah. The quick joke thing is a real problem in it. I think this movie really stood out to me at the time when I was young, and then still I think of it as far as the format of the storytelling and the cast that was in it. And the interview, like the format of mockumentary, all of that was really mind blowing to me. It was just so new as far as like my experience of movies. And then, growing up and understanding more about the world, I feel like also at that time as a straight white woman who, comes from so much privilege, those jokes at the time, didn't even they didn't affect me in the way they do now, where I'm able to see that and be like, that is not funny.
Yeah. No, and I'm not trying to make you defend the film in that way.
No. I know. Yeah.
It always feels like you're forcing people into a corner just by addressing stuff, but
not at all.
But the structure of it is it's not the problem. It's the way I understand how they thought they were getting to the joke, right? The mockumentary aspect, the one of my favorite gags in the film is based on cruelty, and I have to, I have to reconcile that. It's the shot of Sasso stuck, his overall stuck on the rearview mirror and flailing, while the super comes up on screen and says, it's the policy of this film to be objective and not help the subject, and that is really funny from the perspective of the entitled idiot that made the movie. You have to understand the process of filmmaking to get that joke the way they intended it, but it's just to go all that way to that bit is it's a great punchline.
Right. I mean, I think how they summed up a lot of the because that was towards the end, right? That's
it's like 20 minutes before the end.
Yes, I feel like how they wrapped up a lot of the characters' stories, and gave that kind of, and we check in with this character and this thing happened, and we check in with this character and this thing happened. There's a lot of really funny looks into like getting to know the documentary crew. And I feel like you get that the most with Allison Janney's character, because she's like actively flirting with them the entire movie, which is such a funny joke. But getting to see their point of view a little bit, I thought was really fun, because like thinking about something like The Office, which is a mockumentary TV show, when they started introducing us to the documentary film crew, and we started being aware of them in a way we weren't for like 8 seasons of the show or something. I think that that's always like a little tricky to manage, where it feels like the documentary crew is kind of seamlessly woven in with the story, and it doesn't feel abrupt. But I feel like they do that in this movie, where not that we ever see them in person, but you sort of feel their presence and understand their point of view. I think that's a very cool thing.
It makes you appreciate the movie's understanding of editing to make points. Just the same way with, Denise Richards cleaning her gun makes a point based on where it's inserted. And we just get the sense of who the filmmakers are rooting for, which again is, I guess that's the thing that surprises me the most rewatching it, is how much respect it has for the viewer's intelligence to be able to figure out the rhythms and what it's really doing. And again, I shouldn't be surprised, because it's from Michael Patrick Jann, who was with the state, and like they were doing this stuff at the same time. And maybe it was just me dismissing it the first time through because it's about teenage girls, and therefore it felt like I was being encouraged to, like, it kind of feels like it's punching down, but it's punching down at the culture rather than the characters, or at least the pageanteers.
Yes. And there definitely are elements of it where it is punching down and it is mean-spirited. But I agree with you that I feel like overall it mostly feels like it's poking fun at this institution and the people in this small town that are, orbiting it and supporting it, and maybe using it to like achieve their own means. I mean, I think about the Becky. Oh gosh, what's her family's last name? Becky. Yeah.
It's not Lehman. It's
I think it is Lehman. Right?
Oh, it is. Yeah. Rebecca Lehman. Yes.
Yeah. Like her family being like her dad, selling used furniture, or not used furniture, but a furniture salesman who is just an awful, awful person and treats his staff horribly and is clearly like ripping people off. Like I do feel like, even though this I think is really fascinating about mockumentaries, is when a character is so confident and like feels so like they're like expressing to the camera, like, look at what I'm doing, aren't I great? Right. And but what the viewer is experiencing, that character being totally skewered for being an awful person. But a character has no awareness of, like, as they're talking to the camera, they're like, I'm the best and this is great. But the viewer is having a totally different experience of them. I think that's a really fascinating thing you're able to do with mockumentaries.
Yeah. Well, that's the David Brent effect, right? Like Ricky Gervais basically patented that in The Office.
Right. Right.
And I think if we'd spent more time with him, it would have been unwatchable. Like the fact that was only 2 seasons. We just don't have to watch this guy anymore.
Yeah. Yes.
And with the American version, they actually had to make Michael more sympathetic, and because Steve Carell's charisma comes out and his sweetness comes out, and they readjust. Like I really wonder, I mean, could you do something? I was going to say, could you do something with a beauty pageant and follow it over the course of a television series? But of course, that's reality TV. Like, we live in this world now.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think, I don't watch, I watched one season of The Bachelor. I haven't watched very much of it, but I think that the people love that show or follow that show. I think, the reality element of there is a sort of beauty pageant element to that. But then it's also, it takes itself very seriously, which I think that's what we like in thinking of, what would a TV show version of this look like? I think the reality shows that do exist that sort of feel like they're in this world feel like very, very serious or very earnest, at least. They're not trying to be funny. I mean, did you ever see Burning Love?
Oh, yes, of course. With Ken Marino.
Yes. That is, I feel like that they did a great job of kind of taking that same idea of that beauty pageant world or that sort of competition, taking that to the TV space. Yeah. Making a comedy out of it. It's really funny.
Yeah. But it's one that works when we understand like the personality templates that they've built for these shows and the way the editing works and the way the program teaches us how to view the characters. Drop Dead Gorgeous doesn't quite do that because it's working in a different, the whole formula is different because it's supposed to be a commentary, yet also it kind of likes some of them. And if the filmmakers are on their side, then obviously we're going to like them too. I wonder. Yeah, I would love to see what this looked like on the page and what changed during the shoot,
would be so curious. I agree with you. I'm very curious about what it was on the page and then how that shifted in the making of it.
Because it just feels like there is so much talent. I mean, we haven't even talked about Ellen Barkin yet, who just, again, given an almost impossible character to play as a human being, she finds a way. Like she just makes it that weird little moment where she's struggling to open her beer with.
I know.
And it's not like it's somehow everybody in that scene is right. Like everybody is playing the right note there. Like Janny says, why don't you just use your other hand? Barkin's like, nope, they told me I had to learn. And she's committing to it.
Yes.
And Dunst is just sort of sweetly concerned in the corner. There's like, that's such an odd moment to get to. But by the time we do, 80 minutes in, we know where everybody's coming from.
Yeah. And I also think that Ellen Barkin does such a beautiful job with this mother character because Amber is so sweet and she's our protagonist in the movie and we're like cheering for her the whole time. Mm-hmm. And you could easily I think that one could easily play this mother as very kind of negligent in a way and so much of like a child herself that we don't get the relationship between her and Amber, but there's Ellen brings this wonderful, kind of harsh sweetness to the character where you understand how much she loves her daughter. And how Amber taking care of her and getting her cigarettes and all of that it kind of, it works. It's like they have a good relationship with each other.
Yeah, they're always coming towards each other from a good place, which is very sweet. They're not it's not like they're codependent. They're just good at enabling the best things for each other. They want each other to be happy.
Yeah, totally. And I really love the relationship too between Allison Janney and Kirsten Dunst's character. That always lights me up because Allison Janney is just, she's such a caretaker and is so. She's just so funny.
It's the pragmatic thing, right? Where even at the very end, you're a good person and good things happen to good people. Really? No, she just She says the right things, but she knows it's bullshit and she can't keep herself from admitting it.
Yeah. Yes. And one thing that I think is like layered in there, but you don't really dig too much into it, is the relationship of that generation of like
like Annette and Loretta.
Yeah, Annette and Loretta and Gladys. Yes, they went to high school together. They competed in they did the beauty pageant together, and it's just sort of hinted at how much they all hate each other, but you don't really get into it. But it feels like a very old. They have a real history with each other.
Yeah, it's that small town thing, right? Where you're never not the person you were in high school because you never got to go away and be someone else.
Yeah, that's why I think comedies that are set in small towns they're just so rich because of those relationships being so complicated and involved, and things that, to an outsider feel so low stakes, to the people who are in that town, it's so high stakes. Like the Mount Rose beauty competition is like the thing. So
that's all they have. That's their world. That's what they've let their world become.
Mm-hmm.
Given the way that this movie has been sort of rediscovered, it went away for a while. New Line let it go out of print, and now it's back on. Apparently, HBO Max has it, and has released it into the world in HD for the first time. People were talking about it when it happened, which really surprised me. It's like, really, people care that much about Drop Dead Gorgeous? But clearly, it's built up a following of all these people who watched it on cable in the early 2000s and literally grew up with it, yourself included, I guess.
Yeah.
I wonder if Dunst would do a sequel. I would love to know what Amber's doing.
I would love to know. Kirsten Dunst, I mean, she has such excellent taste in the things that she does. I just watched her in On Becoming a God in Central Florida.
That was a really interesting choice for her. Yeah,
really interesting choice. Yes, and Fargo, and she just does cool things. I think she's got really a good taste in the things that she does. So I would love to know if she would be open to that and seeing this story continue and approach it in a different way than it was the first time.
Yeah, I assume she's a governor or something. She's failed upwards or succeeded upwards or been in the right place at the right time upwards. I don't even know how you describe it, because it's not the Peter principle. She's capable.
Yeah.
She would actually be trying to do something.
Right. Oh, I could totally see her becoming a politician. Yeah, I'm curious. Curious if that's something people would want to do.
I want to see that too. But I also don't want to let this go without asking you about your own approach to screenwriting as well as performing. Because the thing that I've wanted to ask you about Happiest Season ever since I saw it is it was promoted as the big comedy, like a big gay romantic comedy set in the holidays. And it is sort of all of that. But what struck me watching it was that it's really a story about the tragedy of not being able to come out, to not be able to be who you are. And the way that Mackenzie Davis's character reverts to the teenager, like the closeted, unhappy teenager she was. It felt like some of the audience reception missed that. And it seemed so clear to me. And as with Drop Dead Gorgeous, I've been thinking about this in this context because I missed its point in 99. I'm sure I did. Is it just that, I don't know, people aren't ready to see a movie like that as more than one thing?
Right. I mean, I think that there's one thing that Clea and I, in the writing of it, and, this is an idea that Clea had for years and wanted to make a movie that represented her experience. And I think what we wanted to bring to the table in the context of a fun holiday movie that's a comedy, that's a rom-com, that has all these elements to it that you expect in a genre movie like that, but that also really doesn't shy away from the reality of how difficult the coming out process can be. And I think that, I in understanding and hearing people's reactions to it and feelings about it, I think that there is a real appetite for joyful content that like represents the gay experience as one of a joyful, celebratory, fun comedy. That's a Christmas movie. I think a lot of people really wanted that. And I hope we were able to give them that. But at the same time, I think that there's the heart of the story is based on personal experiences and wanting to also have others feel seen by that and not shy away from it. I mean, my hope for Happiest Season is the people who did not respond to that element or didn't understand it or didn't upon the first few watchings of it that didn't register with them. I hope that in subsequent viewings of it that does come across, because I think it's just so, Clea does such a beautiful job. And Mackenzie, my God, her performance is so incredible, but like navigating that and showing the truth of that. And I'm so glad that you also caught on to this regression that happens with Mackenzie's character, where like she starts dressing differently, she starts behaving differently,
Yeah.
she's reverting back to her teenage self, and that was so intentional. And so I'm glad that you picked up on that, and I hope others do too. That it really is, we're following this woman on this journey of self-acceptance, and that's not always clean cut, and it can be messy and tough. And I hope viewers can understand that.
I think it's going to be one of those movies where people get a little distance from the trailer and realize what it's really about. And,
right.
What is it, like 5 things you didn't realize about Happiest Season pieces will start showing up next Christmas and the world will get it. But well, and I'm glad it's there, because I think it is the kind of movie that people are going to need in their own development, in their own journey. I hate using journey, but that's what this is.
That is what it is. Yes, it's a process. Yeah.
Yeah. And to swerve entirely off of that to Golden Arm,
yes.
because I've been trying to come up with a graceful segue. There isn't one. Golden Arm is just this big, goofy, fun movie where you get to snog Eugene Cordero and run around in a series of costumes. That's right. It's just so much fun. And
thank you.
Again, how does that work? Did you bring anything from, given the pageantry of arm wrestling, competitive arm wrestling, and this is the way that I get to what is the influence of this movie for you? Is there anything that you did for Drop Dead? Did you quote anything or reference anything?
I feel like with Golden Arm, our director, Maureen Barucha, really, it was such an open dialogue with her as far as these characters. And like before every scene, we would have a conversation about what's happening in this scene. What are we learning about these characters? What is happening story-wise? How can we push it forward? And she would encourage us to, because Betsy Sidara and I have known each other for many, many years, have done a lot of improv together. And so we had this comfort with each other, and Maureen encouraged us and everybody in the cast to make this our own and really have ownership over these characters in this story. And so I feel like with Drop Dead Gorgeous, the specificity, I think, is the main thing that I understood from that movie at a young age, that I was like, oh, I understand why specificity is funny. I think that it was a big lesson I got from that is specifics make comedy. And so I think I did bring that to Golden Arm and to like the dynamic between Melanie and Danny. It's very specific, and I think that always serves a comedy when you can be specific.
My thanks to Mary Holland, who you can currently see making lists and twisting wrists with Betsy Sidaro in Golden Arm, now available to rent or buy on VOD platforms across America. Thanks also to Angie Power and Laura Steen. They know what they did. You can find Mary on Twitter at Mary Hollandaise, all one word, and Drop Dead Gorgeous is indeed streaming on HBO Max in the US. It's a little harder to find in Canada, but the DVDs are still knocking around in used bins, and we're all kind of waiting for Warner Archive to bring it out on Blu-ray anyway. As always, you can find me on Twitter at Norm Wilner and elsewhere on the internet at nowtoronto.com, where I'm hosting a bunch of podcasts these days and writing the weekly Now Streaming newsletter, to which you can subscribe at nowtoronto.substack.com. And you can find this podcast on Twitter at Semcast, S-E-M-cast, and on the web at someoneelsesmovie.com. Our theme song is by The Last Year. If you like it, or the show in general, please say so. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or wherever you've been enjoying us. Every little bit helps, it truly does. And check out the other shows on the Frequency Podcast Network while you're there. Stay home, watch movies, wear a mask if you go out. I'll see you next time.